will be talking about today, our first step in doing data analytics is the crisp DM process. So unfortunately, this has nothing to do with Pringles or any other kind of chip, but it stands for the Cross-Industry Standard Process for Data Mining. Now, this is a way of handling data science projects. It's a bunch of steps. And in the next slide, we're gonna talk about these steps. So here we are with all the steps of the crisp DM. I don't know about you, but I love having a checklist, having a order of things to do, and here it is for our data mining processes, our analytics process. We start here at business understanding. This involves understanding what the end goal of the analytics process will be. What are you trying to accomplish, and how does that fit into the business's goals? Next, a data understanding, collecting the raw data and exploring it, understanding what the numbers mean and relate to. See if there's missing information that is important to your project. Next, data preparation. We choose relevant data for the project, clean, integrate, and format that data. We're going to go into more detail about all these steps, but for now, we can consider this step somewhat formatting the data. Next, an iterative process between these two, modeling. Modeling is also selecting the right algorithm, and algorithm can be a very intimidating word, but modeling and algorithms are very similar, if not the same thing in some instances. Lastly, after we've chosen our model, we will evaluate. Take a step back from the computer, pause. Did we meet our beginning goal? Are we truly answering the questions that we set out to answer? And did we select the model which best meets the goals? If not, we need to go back, we need to go back and retry. And lastly, deployment. If we did successfully complete our mission, create a plan to deploy the model, make the information accessible to others outside the project who it is pertinent to, and create that final report. That thing that'll make your boss or yourself feel super accomplished. So, now that we've gone over the crisp DM, let's talk about our objective for this video. Our objective is to use the crisp DM methodology to perform data analytics on HR data. I have linked in the video the data set I will be using that you can follow along with. I recommend using the sample data set first to really understand what we're doing before trying it on your own data. So, a software we're going to be using, Knime. I will link the site below as well. But Knime is a software that I've found in graduate school and I have fallen in love with it. It is a really user-friendly, accessible way to perform data analytics. You can see here in community and learning, so all this stuff is free, it's open to anyone, and they have lots of little forums where you can post your questions. They have learning modules where you can walk step by step. I highly recommend, if this video is too confusing, which it could be, to go and check out these learning modules and then come back and try again with this. So, back to our crisp DM. This is the software we will be using to employ the crisp DM. Step 1 is business understanding. Now remember, this involves understanding the end goal of what our analytics process will be and what we are trying to accomplish. For this sample data set, our big question is, what employees are going to leave our company? We're going to identify the employees who are likely to leave the company. That is our end goal. And why would we do this? Because we want to run an efficient and effective company. Now, I do want to take a moment as a disclaimer. This is a teaching experience. I chose a data set which already had a question that needed to be answered. This question. The real life ethical implications of conducting this analysis should be taken into consideration before the project begins. That is to say, yes, we're answering this specific question with this fictional data set. I, as an HR former professional, do not recommend doing this specific question on your real life data. And I feel comfortable using it as an example though, because in my experience, HR professionals are conscientious of performing things like that. But I did want to take a minute to have that disclaimer. Now, as someone who works for the company and is an HR professional, part of your job is understanding the business, the goals, and so I feel HR professionals are especially ready, poised to have the business understanding for their data. But let's focus on this sample data set that we are using. Step 2, data understanding. Now remember, this is the step where we collect the raw data and explore it. We understand what the numbers mean and relate to and see if there's missing information important to the project. Now this is a screenshot from our sample data set, which I have linked below, from Kaggle. It is a fictitious data set created by IBM for people like us to learn data analytics. It's a good example of the data I had access to as an HR professional, and maybe you have access to, that sparked so many questions for me. Now, our project is going to focus on attrition. Remember, whether or not an employee is going to leave the company. This data set includes both categorical and numeric data. The categorical data is the data that falls into categories, like business travel. The options for the responses are travel rarely, travel frequently, or non-travel. There's also numeric data, obviously data that is numbers. They have a true zero, the numbers that we think of most often, like daily rate or distance from home. Now we want to use this historical data to predict future outcomes given the same information. So our target variable, the variable we are trying to predict, is this attrition column. And it is a categorical column, meaning it falls into one of two categories, yes or no. Yes, they left the company, or no, they did not leave the company. So, here is a screenshot of us performing this data understanding in Knime. Here, we use the CSV reader to upload our Excel into the Knime software. And then we use our statistics to view the data and see what's missing and understand the categories of our data. Now you can see this is cut off. Throughout the video I'm going to add to this picture. But these are the two modules that I will be using for our project. Now we're ready to move on to our next step in the CRISP DM.